It's just a pleasure to work on old school machinery, machines that require to use your hands and your brains. There isn't a computer, there isn't an electric switch, there isn't a micrometer. It's just the feel of good raw engineering.
Keeping the wheels in motion. A group of volunteers has stopped this watermill in Cumbria from being consigned to history once again. The COVID pandemic has seriously hit the finances of the National Trust, which owns the building at Acorn Bank near Penrith. So they had to make the difficult decision not to reopen it as a working exhibit.
Last year the National Trust lost £200 million worth of income, and as a consequence of that, the whole organisation, including small properties like ours, have had to really make some big decisions and think about our business model and how we can be more sustainable in the future. And it was really looking at it as a case where continuing to run the mill just wasn't looking that viable.
But now the volunteer millers who were working there have stepped in to save it. They've created a charity to lease the mill from the National Trust, and they're hoping to sell enough flour to keep it running.
It's just, I think it's important that people should be able to see how people use machines in the past, and then maybe it'll give them some ideas of how to use machines in the future.
So is the flour good stuff?
Flavour is superb, yes.
The volunteers here have a long history with the 200-year-old mill, having restored it back into working order more than a decade ago. But more are needed, like Joe, who's learning the ropes.
You spend a day here and you just get lost in the world of milling. Just the sound of the mill turning over, and it's just the whole natural feeling of the place.
So do you think this is the way the National Trust is going to have to work in the future?
I think that this is something that the National Trust will be doing more of, definitely fitting in with our strategy for coming out of COVID. I feel that with local millers helping the National Trust in the running of this mill, we're more engaging and we can really add value for our local communities and for our members and our visitors as well.
There are records of a mill being on this site since the 14th century, and the volunteers hope they can keep the water wheel turning here for many more years to come. Alison Freeman, BBC News.
Well, let's talk to Alison, who's there now. Alison, what's clear from those people you're speaking to is those volunteers have got loads just out of being involved in getting the whole thing going again.
Yeah, it's really interesting, isn't it? Because we've seen community groups taking over their local shops, their local pubs, their local post offices when they've been under threat of closure. And this is something really different. This is a tourist attraction. I've got a couple of the volunteers here with me now. And, excuse me. Martin, you're one of the volunteer millers here, aren't you? It's not just a tourist attraction, is it? There's an educational role, isn't there?
Oh yes, we get lots of children come here, and it's brilliant to be able to explain to them that the only resource we're using to make the flour is water. It comes from the river, turns the wheel, goes back to the river, nothing's wasted. And to show them how we take the grain that comes out, it goes through the stones, comes out as flour, they can see the flour. It's brilliant just to see the faces, and I hope it just encourages them to think about engineering and the possibilities for using this type of technology in the future.
That's the real passion that we were hearing from you there. You love it, don't you? I'm going to move on now to Bill. Bill, you're the chief engineer here. We can see one water wheel going there. There are big plans afoot, though, aren't there?
There are big plans, yes. Originally, there were three water wheels here. And we have plans to reinstate the second wheel.
Will that be used for milling flour as well?
It will be used for demonstration purposes only at this stage. Maybe at some time in the future we may get that far, but it's a long-term project for that.
So I take you can't just get the parts for this
You cannot get spare parts. They stopped making spare parts for these things a long time ago. So if we need spare parts, we have to make them.
So you can't just nip to B&Q and pick
You can't just go to B&Q and buy a new water wheel, no, or bits for a water wheel.
Why do you want to do this?
I think it's important that these things are preserved for the future. The technology is old. It's been around centuries old technology, simple technology. In third world countries, or it's still used on a regular basis.
You're fascinated by it, aren't you?
Yes, I really enjoy it, yes.
Lovely. I'm going to pop back to Martin over here. Martin,
Yeah.
It's a labour of love, but you still need more help, don't you?
Oh yes, there's plenty of scope here for volunteers. One of the big things we've got at the moment is we can only mill at weekends, mainly because that's the number of millers we have, which we're all volunteers. So there's always space for more volunteers, for milling, for cleaning, for interpretation, for just helping around the place. And there's a lot of opportunity here to come and get involved in the mill. Thank you.
Thanks ever so much for that. You see, the guys absolutely love working here. They want more people to come and help, and hopefully keep this mill going for many more years to come.
You were saying it's uncalming, the noise, isn't it?
Water, yeah. Lovely. So nice it's still going. It's back up and running again. There you go. Thank you to you this morning.